to make them competitive with the old order in quite the same way. Mr. Mourinho was very critical of this. There are also, I think, certainly from an English club perspective, some issues with the way financial fair play, income and expenditure is calculated, which benefits some, penalises others. For example, across Europe, taxation and tax rates are set by individual countries. So it could cost more for a club in one country to employ a player on 20,000 euros a week than it would cost another club who's playing in the same European competition to pay that player 20,000 euros a week, because the second club doesn't have the same level of taxation costs to include within their calculation. So some view that as sort of slightly unfair, and the UEFA's rules should operate to sort of level that out and take into account tax rates, so to give a much truer and fairer view of the costs of the club and the way the club is being run. Similarly, third-party ownership. This is something that's very big in some parts of the world in football, particularly South America, but also Portugal and Spain. What third-party ownership is basically some clubs are able to get someone else to pay part or all in some cases of the transfer fee for a player, and in return they grant a right to the income that the club will receive when the player is transferred in the future. Investment. So for a club that can use that model, had they wanted to sign someone like Romelu Lukaku, for example, they could have paid a very small amount of money, €1 million, €2 million, got someone else to cover the rest of the transfer fee, which I think has been publicly reported as 28 million euros. Oh, that's 28 million pounds, sorry. And their outlay would have only been very small, but they would have signed the player for a much higher value. In England, we are banned by the Premier League from being able to do that. So if we sign a player, we have to pay for that, and we can't use third-party ownership. So there's a question mark over, is it fair to not take into account for financial fair play purposes the ability of some clubs to fund their activities from certain sources which other clubs don't have access to. The clubs that use third-party ownership can improve their playing strength in games against Everton without having to spend the same amount of money that Everton would have to. Similarly, in English football, we distribute a lot of money that the Premier League generates from the Premier League to the Football League and to grassroots football and to youth development. That doesn't happen in other European leagues. So we are, for financial fair play purposes, being penalised for doing things that generally are seen as a good thing for the health of the game. We're supporting grassroots football, we're supporting clubs in divisions that don't generate the revenues that the Premier League does. Yet for financial fair play purposes, we're effectively penalised for that. And finally, one that I just hasn't had much press coverage, but I think is worth considering, is the impact on supporters. The great Celtic manager Jock Stein once said that football without fans is nothing, and that's true. Now there's campaigns in England at the moment led by fans relating to how much it costs to see English football. In some organisations, I have to say, Goodison Park is very reasonably priced, and I hope to see you all there one day. But if clubs have to maximise their existing revenue streams in order to be able to play in European football, that doesn't give us much room for manoeuvre in relation to what we can do as regards making football, in the phrase of some, more affordable for fans. We might want to reduce ticket prices, or some clubs might want to reduce ticket prices, But if that meant that they would get penalised by UEFA because that would increase their level of losses because their revenues would decrease, they won't be able to do it. So there may be an unintended consequence and an unintended knock-on effect on football supporters and the ability of clubs to reward their supporters. Just to move on, future of